everybody. Welcome to the Artist Dojo, where we will be talking with artists, craftspeople, creators of all disciplines to see how they navigate a life in the arts. Today's guest is television, film, stage actor, voice actor, director, music producer, dancer who's traveled the world with his dance company, New York City, Netherlands, Japan, and Spanish Harlem's own Angel Feliciano. Welcome, man.
It's good to be here. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. I have to say right away, first, happy birthday, because
Thank you
like I
so
said
much.
moments ago, I didn't realize that it was until we set it up, and then I thought that's kind of fun because it really expresses your personality. You're the type of guy that's willing to, like, on your birthday, put the work in and have a conversation about kind of the art life.
Let's do it. Yeah, no, it's a great way to start the day for sure.
Nice. So we met back in 2008 at the Labyrinth Theater Masterclass. And
Man, 2008. That's crazy.
I know, it's nuts, dude. And I remember you from back then because you were just like,
Mm-hmm.
it felt like you were able to do everything. Like you were dancing, you were acting, you were, really like intensely connected in the class at that time. And when I look back on my experience and kind of wanting to create this podcast, I remember the energy of certain people and the behavior of how they carried themselves. And, over the years, we've kept in touch through Facebook and social media. And you're very much somebody who's a go-getter. So that's one of the reasons. And also I wanted to catch up because I hadn't spoken to you in a long time. What's new, man?
Just living the dream. I'm here in Brooklyn. I'm still here in New York, but just navigating the space of arts and transitioning into the music space, which we'll probably talk about later. But
Yeah,
it's
for
just been
sure.
it's been just to be here, and I guess not the older I get, but it's just this appreciation for just life and the simplicity of it all, because sometimes we all get thrown out of the mix as far as like what our passion is. So for me, just to keep things simple and just experience life and zero my
I've, s-
expectations, I think that's the
I've
game
seen
changer
some of
for me
the
too.
the shots and videos that you've done of Coney Island. And first of all,
Yeah.
Coney Island is my favorite. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, and Coney Island is still, I've been to other places in the world, and it could be just the childhood memories and all that stuff, but it's my favorite place to go. I feel like I am very much centered when I'm there, and there's really no place like it. Right in the middle of summer when it's popping,
Hmm.
it's quite the place,
It's
man.
crazy too. Like I remember I have pictures when I was young, it's like 6 or 7. And for my communion, my dad took me to Coney Island. And it's where my mom and dad met initially. It's crazy that to think that some 30 something years later that that I would actually be here living here. And to seeing the opportunities that are coming into not just Brooklyn, but places like Queens and the Bronx, it's really encouraging. All
Yeah.
the housing opportunities and just jobs that are coming into play. So it's encouraging for sure.
Anything in particular that stands out that you've seen while living there? Because you've been there, what, for like a year now or more?
Just a year, and it's just this situation presented itself about a year ago. It's crazy how your situation can change in a flash. Because I was living in Bushwick at the time, so I
Okay.
just paid a visit. I paid out a visit to Coney Island, and I saw new developments coming in, and because back in the day, Coney Island, it was just this one central, right by Surf Avenue and the Cyclone, but
Mm-hmm.
to see all the breweries coming up, the baseball stadium down the block, new restaurants, new house, it's really encouraging to see that across not just
Yeah.
Brooklyn, but all boroughs.
It's changed a lot. It's really
It has.
it's beautiful because there's also the nostalgic feeling because my dad used to take me in the late 80s, early 90s to the arcades, El Dorado, Faber
Hmm.
Arcade, and I mean the vibe there was just so
Yeah, they still have
unique.
that.
And
Hmm.
yeah, they do, but it's just funny. It's like the evolution of this place that has um an energy to it that I really love. Um, Let me ask you the
No,
first thing
I
that I
agree.
like to kind of
Yeah,
start
absolutely.
with in these conversations.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to find the right way to ask it. But in the past, artists were an integral part of society and culture, from storytellers to griots to tribal elders to iconoclasts, etc. Do you think that the artist is still an integral part of today's society?
I do. I do. You know, when we go see a movie and we escape for those 2 hours, you know, there's emotion there. There's an artist there that we're looking at, you know, and it's reminding of a situation. When we hear a piece of music, you know, when we go to a museum and look at a piece of art, you know, that came from a place of truth. That came from someone emoting, and that can connect. And it's subjective, right? A painting can connect with this person 10 minutes later, it can't connect with that person. But I really do feel that artists are part, you know, are an integral part of society today, for sure.
Yeah. So, do you see yourself as an artist, craftsman, both, neither, something, else altogether?
I do. I see myself more as a student of the arts, whether it's dance related, whether it's acting.
Ah, I love
You know,
that, man. A student of the
when
arts. Oh,
yeah, like when I met you at the Labyrinth, you know, I was at a point where I felt a burnt out as a dancer choreographer, and I wanted to create like a body of work in theater that encompassed dance, but really focused on the vulnerabilities and acting and the emotion, you know, the emotionality of it all, which is when I signed up and I met you at the Labyrinth. So that was at that point in my life where I said, let me take it back to the acting realm and just surround myself with people who are vulnerable, people who are, you know, take their craft seriously. And that's when I met you. So it was cool juxtaposition of that, you know?
yeah, I love that. You're saying bringing kind of the emotional level to those physical things. It's like, I train in martial arts, and I've always imagined I would love to do a martial arts movie with
I can see
gravitas, like
that.
actual emotional weight. But it's a challenging
Hmm.
thing because it's those types of films have been done so much. So it's like, how then do you, not to say reinvent the wheel, but how do you bring those elements to it and make it this beautiful thing? So similarly with dance, I would assume, you want to create something that's new and uh, has an authenticity to it. So yeah, I can totally appreciate that. What initially inspired you to pursue a career in the arts?
For
Was there a
me,
specific
I'm
moment? I know
sorry.
you've been in it since you were young, and you've done a lot of
Hmm.
television, film, and all that stuff. So was there something specific that started you off?
Yeah, well, growing up, you know, as you attributed to earlier in Spanish Harlem, it was three things. It was either we were introduced to music early on, we had like summer block parties, we had school talent shows in the community, but then I fell in love with the performing arts program. You know, we learned how to improv, we learned how to write our own little plays, we learned how to direct and cast it. You know, and it was just for me, it was an outlet that just kept me out of the trouble. It was either playing sports, dance, or getting into the performing arts as far as the drama program in school. That, and I just caught the acting bug. There is when I fell in love with, you know, one act plays and improv, and to me that was just, you know, the exposure to that when I was 12 is how I got my first manager, who at the time she was looking for Hispanic talent to represent in film, television, and commercials. So that was my small taste of that, is auditioning for this manager and then going out to auditions when I was probably like 13 or 14.
Yeah, that's funny because it's definitely
Mhm.
part of the culture. Because I remember being in school, middle school, high school. I went to William E. Grady, which is actually a technical vocational high school in
Mhm.
Brighton Beach, like Coney Island area.
That's
And
crazy.
I was like such a goofball, I would joke with my friends and be silly and stuff like that. And that sometimes those skills they offset the real life challenges that are happening, so you can kind of make life a little more fun for everybody. And it's a delicate balance. But that was also where I discovered acting. My first audition was like my junior year in high school, and so you get the bug will get you if you have
Yeah.
some inkling towards it. So that's really cool.
And it's crazy
um
to think that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's
no,
crazy to
please.
think that even when I was dancing, and dance for me at the time was recreational. It was not a profession. I never even imagined that some 20 something years later that I'd have a dance company and stuff and tour it. So it was just, I would dance in my neighborhood, right? But then we would go to practice as far as, putting up these little plays in school. And it was bound is either playing sports, dance, or act. It was one of those three. But the acting was really for me something that just caught my eye and heart.
So self-producing has been there since the jump, basically.
Pretty early on, yeah, we had to like not fend for ourselves, but we had to, we were given assignments. So it's like, all right, produce your own. Here's the situation. Here's what you're gonna improv. You're gonna cast it. Who's gonna play the director? All right, who's gonna act in it? So we had our drama teacher, Terry Myrick, who I'm thankful for because he was the one who exposed me to that. And it was that challenge early on in school, and to me that was just it really it caught me off guard, but in a good way, and I was just obsessed with that.
So, how do you currently navigate the practical aspects of your life with your creative pursuits? Do you Is there such thing as a work-life balance?
I think there is, but I'm still trying to navigate that. I wish I had the answer where, like, for example, I wake up at 6:30 a.m. I do 500 push-ups, and then I work on the piano, and then I go to work, and then I clock out of work and go home. This life, I wish it were that way, but it's not. There are moments where I'm just like, I'm not feeling it this week, so I'm not working on some music. And then the next week is like, all right, I'm back on, so we always have those up and down moments. But it's tricky in New York City, right? You've got rent to pay. The reality is you've got to work, you got to work to pay the bills anywhere, really. But
So, is there
yeah,
also
it's
a
it's just
sensitivity? Is there a sensitivity to, like, for example, let's say you're like, I'm slammed this week. I'm not going to beat myself up about the fact that I can't do this thing, but next week or when it hits me, you have like a 12-hour session or something like that. Do you lean more towards those
absolutely.
types of things?
I do. And then sometimes what I do and what I find inspiring to sort of catch that lightning in a bottle moment for creativity is I get out of the space. I mean, physically I need to be here to create, but the fact that I can take walks, long walks in the city. Sometimes I'll go to the
Yep.
Lower East Side and that'll inspire like, oh, I can create a soundtrack to a TV show based on what I witnessed. You know what I'm saying? And then I'll
Yeah.
get home. So I feel like sometimes creativity and inspiration sparks when you're not in the setting. So for me, sorry, I probably didn't answer that question
No, no,
properly, but
no, that makes sense because also it reminds me of you did this beautiful shot of Coney Island off
mhm,
of that was the Q train, right?
right. Mhm.
Yeah, so you're going across towards Stillwell Avenue,
Mhm.
a site that I've seen a million times in my life. And when I saw that you put that footage up, it just like, oh, dude, it hit me like right. There was something about it that was so perfect that captured that moment where you like turn the bend on Stillwell
Mhm.
Avenue and you see the Wonder Wheel and you see Coney Island. You're like, not everybody. I mean, you can't just put up a camera and capture it. Like something about
Right.
the way there was an emotion to it that was really beautiful, and you
Thank
put
you.
up a
Thanks.
link. You're like, hey, if anybody wants to use this footage, Venmo me. And I was like,
And
yeah,
you were
dude,
the
I
first
want to, I
one.
want to use it, and I used it as a trailer for my comic book. But that's only I mention it because, like you said, you go for walks or you find these things and they pop up, and that was one of them that led to an actual like creative collaboration. So I think for
That's
me that
awesome,
just
man.
popped up in my head based on that. So I
Thank you.
love.
Yeah, and you were the first one. And the crazy part about that is when I shot that moment, um, I heard something. Like I was hearing something in my head, like a film, like a trailer, and a voice. And then you were the first one to respond, and then you put a voiceover to that thing, and it was literally exactly like the feel as far as the voiceover and the vibe that I heard in my head. So you hit it spot on with that.
I guess that's the one benefit of social media these days is you can kind of like be motivated by something that you see and create. Because in a
Hmm.
time prior, that wouldn't have happened unless we were hanging out and you're like, "Yo, hey, look at this footage I
So
did."
true. So true.
So
Hmm.
I guess that's a pro for social media right there.
Yup.
What? strategies do you use to overcome creative blocks or periods of low inspiration, which you kind of were touching on a little bit already with the walks, but is there
Right.
something in particular?
I try to, for me, it's sometimes physically working out. Sometimes it's getting out of the space, which like I was touching on
Mm-hmm.
earlier. But when I get in a funk and it's, I wish I could say like in my 20s, excuse me, in my 20s, I was just able to just be everywhere, create. Like at 10 o'clock, I'll create a dance piece. And then at 12 o'clock, I'm creating a soundtrack to the dance. And then I'm shooting something. But then you get older. It's not that you slow down, but you really compartmentalize and you prioritize, what needs the most amount of focus. So sometimes that could be a workout. Sometimes that could be writing it down. Like not 10 things you want to accomplish, but just the first three, just the first three things. It can be a physical workout, or it can be, writing it down, or experiencing something outside of the studio.
Nice. And then how do you handle financial challenges that often come up with being an artist? I know uh, you were doing uh, real estate for a little bit, and that seemed like such a visually it seemed like a good match because you're the type of person like you get suit and tied up and you speak well, you're a genuine person. Did you find that that wasn't something that was helping you in that way, or that was worth it? I mean, I guess that's a secondary part to the question, but like dealing with financials as an artist, and then also like those maybe those day jobs that you got to do to make it happen.
No, totally. For me, the real estate, when I got my real estate license, it was an opportunity for me to get out into the streets. Like I love New York City. I'm always praising New York City. So
Mm.
my curiosity for real estate was just helping people, not necessarily trying to rent or sell an apartment, but it was just sharing my love for New York City. That was the intention behind me getting my real estate license was, hey, listen, I love this city. I know this city. If I can help you transition, that'd be awesome. But then it started to turn into this thing where it was about the bottom line and the numbers and the rankings. And when I found myself getting into that realm of like, how many deals did you do today? Oh, but we have to be top 5 this month. That's when I fell out of love with it, and that's when anxiety started to
Yeah.
kick in. I went into this deep depression where it became about rankings and numbers as opposed to just this organic vibe, where it's just, no, let me just help you, navigate the city, whether you want to move here or not.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I've worked corporate gigs where genuinely within less than a year's time, they're like, "Hey, do you want to be a district manager?" It's like I could sell ice in Alaska, but I just
Hmm.
spiritually, it's not my thing. So even though
Yeah.
I have the skill and the ability, it's just there's something internally that doesn't click. So I feel you, man. It's a balance, at least for
What I
me.
try to preach to people, no, I completely get it too. And what I try to preach to people, whether you're actor, dancer, is, try to be resourceful, try to learn different areas. And it's not that you need to be the jack of all trades, master of none. But for me, early on is like, okay, how can I make additional, revenue or income? I can do some graphic design work. I'm not a master graphic designer. I can edit videos and do motion graphics, and I can do websites. The sort of like double-edged sword to that is now you're spread out in all these different things, and you're not focused in this one, passion that you want to do. So that's the tough part about it is, yeah, I can make additional money elsewhere. I can create mixes for dancers, I can edit websites and create websites. But then you have to come to a point where you're like, okay, I have talents in all these things, but now you got to narrow your focus. And if you need to find a job, a 9 to 5 to, substitute that income, then,
Yeah.
that's the price,
Do
I
you know that
guess.
full quote though? Jack of
Hmm.
all trades, but a master of none is oftentimes
And then
better than a master of one.
it continues. I know we always leave that part out, right?
Yeah,
Which
but
I
that's
did.
the thing is
Yep.
like I think there's a huge benefit because someone like me, I'm a one man show with this podcast.
Hmm.
So initially, when I did the first few episodes, I was like, I felt good. I was like, I felt positive. Then I think similarly to what you experienced with the real estate stuff, 2021 in particular was very, very difficult. Aside from what was happening in the world, there was just a lot
Mhm.
of like philosophically, I feel like I'm a certain person. I believe in positive things. I believe in the goodness of people, and I had experienced someone maybe really for the first time that was in a position to like take advantage of me in a
Mm.
like malicious way. And I was like, oh dude, that hit me so hard because I want to always, and I continue to, but I think I got hit in that moment where I was like, oh man, am I looking at life wrong? Like I was in a bit of a dark spot. But when I came back from it, I was like, no, I could see where I made mistakes, which I won't repeat, and then I can
Right.
see where I can move forward in a positive light. So
How long did it
um
take you to get to that place? Like when you felt initially when you felt like betrayed and you felt hurt, and then you started coming back around.
dude, I don't know, but I know all the grays started showing up immediately. It was like one
Yep.
year, and
Oh
it was
yeah.
like boom, they just started sprouting up. My beard and hair were getting gentrified.
Ah,
All the whites were coming in, man.
that's like we're not getting any younger too. Like
Yeah, no, that's true.
no,
You
but it's crazy how
can't
stress.
always blame it on stress, you know.
No. But
But
sometimes
yeah, I
stress.
think
Listen, I've been through that.
it took me, I would say, a good year. It was like it felt like a cycle where I was feeling good, and then I had moments of it coming back, and then I felt good. And honestly, last year this time, I learned transcendental meditation, and that really shifted a big part of my life. I was dealing with like panic, anxiety,
Mm.
things that were like debilitating. And when I learned this, it's 20 minutes twice a day. It
I heard about
really,
that. I need to pick your brain about that more.
we'll
I heard
talk
about
about
the
it. It really
yeah.
reset a lot for me and helped me a bunch. Um, what does the role of networking and building relationships play in your artistic journey?
I think it's one of the crucial elements that sometimes artists frown upon when, when I mention the word business and marketing and networking especially,
Hmm.
because you got to I have that old school approach where you still have to get out there, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally. Like, yeah, it's cool to have an Instagram and show your dance videos or show your acting ability in your reels, but you've got to get out there and talk to people and meet people, and don't be afraid to let the world know who you are. I was one of those like conservative, like, quiet person, last person in the room, don't really mention, because I don't walk in the room and like, hey, this is me, this is what I do. I'm
Yeah,
more
yeah.
low key with it, but I try to preach to the artistic community to really network and get out there. Let people know what you do. Put that out into the world. Put that frequency and energy out there because it definitely will come back.
So be there and also put that energy into what you're putting out. So instead of being the person in the room that's like, boom, 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 yo, I'm in here. It's like, this is my work, and that speaks for it
Absolutely.
as
And
well.
you can always have a conversation with somebody, and that person that you're having, you never know whether you're at work, and you're like you're feeling shitty, excuse the expression, right? That conversation that you'd have with, I don't know, a customer, or let's say you're doing, you're not doing your art at that time. You never know in a restaurant or in another setting how that conversation with someone can totally change the trajectory of your career for sure.
That brings up a
It's
really
happened to me.
interesting, yeah, that brings up a really interesting thing too, because networking can be this really like you said, like an icky word to people, because I think there's like some people end up breaking off into camps where it's like overly strategic and kind of like gimme,
Right.
gimme, gimme, what can you do for me kind of a thing,
Right.
versus like our example, I'm in the mix. I see the things that you're doing. You're one of those people that like come to my mind when I think about a conversation like this, and I ask you to do it, and it wasn't like, oh hey, Angel baby, do my podcast, and you'd be like, I
Right.
don't know,
Yeah.
dude, because you actually you.
Mhm.
So I love your posts. You did a post once where you said something to the effect of like, don't just come. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, don't just come to me and like ask like for something, and not being like it had to do with like that genuine element of like, um not like the what can you do for me lately kind of thing, but
Right.
like check in every
I'll
so
touch.
often, especially if you're a
Yeah,
real like a friend or someone you know.
absolutely. Because I've been through that experience where we have friends in the industry, right? And I'm thankful for. Don't get me wrong. I'm thankful that friends are giving me an opportunity to whether they want to pay me to do something for them. But I found myself in a situation where I was like the fixer for everybody.
Hmm.
Hey, my editor canceled on me. Angel, can you do this quick edit for me? And of course, I'm thankful for it. Don't get me wrong. But I
And
was
usually it's not a
also
quick edit.
oh, no, no, no. They're like, "Oh, it's quick," and it's not. It takes like a week or 2 or probably
Uh-huh.
longer than
Yeah.
that, and then they want you to do revisions, and it's cool. It's not that I'm complaining about it, but at the same time, I found myself like, not the sponge for everybody, but like all of a sudden, "Oh, Angel will do it. Don't worry about it. He'll do
You
it."
felt
And then
responsible
inst
to save the day.
yeah, and then they were like, instead of just being genuine, "Hey, Angel, how's your day? Let's get coffee." It was always, "Hey, Angel, what's up? Anyway, the reason why I'm hitting you up is because I need this."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
"Hey, Angel, everything's cool? All right. Anyway, can you do this for me?" And I found it's like everybody's just me, 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 as opposed to we. If we change the conversation to we and just hit me up randomly, "Hey, listen, let's just have an idea. Do you have an idea for something?" I may not be in that territory, but hey, like let me give you an example. Like I had a friend, he's a friend of a relative. He's a plumber. Like I have nothing to do with plumbing. But he needed help, somebody holding the camera while he was doing a tutorial showing somebody how to, like work with plumbing.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll hold the camera for you. You know, there's none of this like, "Hey, Angel, what can you do for me, me, me?" It's like, "Hey, listen, I'll help you." You transactional, you help me. Not that I expected, but I found myself in that situation where everyone's like, "Hey, me, 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 me," and then it's like, "Oh, all right, yeah, that's cool." But and that's when I cut some relationships off, but that's when I really started to focus on, let me not be the sponge for everybody, where it's
Yeah,
just
because
I'm fixing their situation.
you can
Hmm.
barter skills, and you can like, and I think that's a great tip for people, especially any creative person, because you can't do it by yourself.
Right.
I mean, you can to a degree, but if it's going to be a creative endeavor that includes other people, you have to be able to navigate that. So I think you have a good balance, and that was a strong point that you made about that. It's like that saps your energy too, because now
Oh, it does.
you somehow become a person's creative director. You somehow become their DIT guy. You somehow become, you're like, dude, how did I fall into this? So I've
Hmm.
definitely been there before. I want to read something that you wrote, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You posted this: things to do during a strike, the unpopular opinion edition. One, clean your apartment. You'd be surprised how productivity comes into play when your place is clean. Two, write your own material even if it never sees the light of day. Three, get a flexible 9 to 5 and put your ego aside. I love that. Four, collaborate with someone on an idea. Here we are. Thank you. uh, Five, learn how to edit videos. Six, go outside and walk for 45 minutes. Seven, stop thinking about a strike or quote unquote lack of and think of potential growth. Eight, study something new. Nine, listen to a podcast like the Artist Dojo. 10, give back to the community. Uh, should be number one, is what you wrote. And there's extra there, but I love the thought of, it seems like anytime there's a thought of scarcity or fear, you seem to go in the direction of like, nah, let's not let that saturate the thought process. So what are your thoughts on that? Is that kind of is that something you've cultivated, or is that something that's naturally just comes out of you?
I think since I was young, like I remember, living in East Harlem, where I don't know if it comes from the parents, right? My father lived in Philly at the time, but my mother always lived in New York. And it was always this thing where if my friends go one way, I don't have to necessarily go that way with them. And it's not because I'm introverted or extroverted. It's just, blaze your own path. If there's a moment of scarcity, or there's just like a difficult moment that you're going through, Yeah, we're gonna have to go through that, but it doesn't mean you have to live in that, right? If everybody's saying that everyone's unemployed and there's a recession and nobody's spending money, then obviously no one's gonna be doing that, trying to find employment or spend money. But if everybody goes right, you don't have to go with everybody. Turn left, go that way. So I've always, since I found myself since I was 14, 15, to never not necessarily go in the direction where everybody's moving, and it's very easy in today's landscape to read a headline or a social media post and be like, oh, that's the reality, so poor me. When it's like, yeah, there's a strike right now, but you can be resourceful. You can still create. Is it going to pay you immediately? No. But at the same time, it's like I refuse to live in that, because I was there about 4 or 5 years ago, like completely depressed. And it was just this hole where no matter how much you're trying to dig yourself out of, and this is something that men don't talk about, or sometimes in just society, not just men, but
Hmm.
it's one of those things where it's like, if there's adversity, zoom out, look at the bigger picture, and then stop living in that. There's no work. What am I going to do? No, write, create, network, go out there, work out, collaborate. So I've just, since I was young, I've always had that mentality.
Yeah. And then, so you talked about kind of managing emotional ups and downs by creating. Um, so staying committed to creative projects in the face of life's challenges, how does that fare in there? Like, do you set deadlines? Is it just something that you're like, I'm making this, I have a couple of things on the back burner? Are you like, I focus on one thing, guy, get that done, and then I move on to the next one? um,
Deadlines, I need to get better with, for sure. I've never been a fan of deadlines. Now, deadlines can be good because obviously you're going to get that done in this amount of time, and then you're moving on to the next thing. But I've always been a little weak on that, where it's like, you know what? Wake up, finish the first three things. Sometimes I'm guilty of just like, this project is sitting for like a week and I've really got to jump back on it, with whether it's what's the word I'm trying to use?
like a fresh
When you put
perspective.
Yeah, or like when you put something off for whatever reason, just
Procrastinate.
yes.
I've
So
been there.
just that alone,
I've been there.
but I need to get better with deadlines, because I feel like even if I applied that now, it's for productivity. Even in your art, it can just do so much and improve, and you can get so much done quicker. Building my catalog of music, which is what I'm doing now. So I need to get better with the whole deadline thing for sure.
So you talked a little bit about this before, but um, what impact does your personal environment or workspace have on your creative output? Are you somebody that's like, I need the space to be immaculate before I start? Um, do you not care if they're just like rappers on the, around? Like, do you just
Right.
go crazy and create in a tornado, or like how does it work?
Sometimes the best things you create is like when you're in a hot mess of a place, or like you're in a noisy environment. But I'm big on that because just I remember when I was down and out, and my place looked like a hot mess, and I wasn't even interested in cleaning anything. Not that I was a pig, but it was just this clutter, right? This clutter in your environment, in your space. And I started thinking about it, and I don't know if it was a book that I read, Atomic Habits. It was one of
Oh
these
yeah, that's a
books.
great dude.
Hmm. You have it too?
Fantastic,
Yes,
fantastic
sir.
book.
Right?
100% recommended.
But it just talked about these small little steps, and one of those things, it was just your whole environment, and for me, having something clean, doing your bed in the morning, washing the dishes, you'd be surprised how all that just adds to the creative element and helps you, in the space.
Yeah, it's like a snowball effect. It gives you like small victories along the way, and you're like, yeah, I'm doing it. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
I totally get that.
and everybody's different, if you're the creative who just loves like clutter and mess, and that's how you can create and you feel at home with that, that's you.
Yeah, no judgments, man. I know some people who create, like I said, it's like a tornado, and at the end you're like, whoa.
Right?
Whereas me, like I fantasize about having the like American Psycho type space where it's like immaculate, clean, nice, but I just never quite get there. Um,
Yeah,
how do you decide which projects to pursue and which to pass on, if that's even a thing? Or like, is there a hard line? Is there something that,
that's a good
comes up
question.
with that question?
With like for music, which is what I'm really focused on more now, it's really a free for all. I'll embrace. I mean, I can do hip hop, I can do house, I can do cinematic scoring, but I need to focus on just two or three genres that I can But like I remember being called out for acting gigs, and it was constant calls for like gang member roles. And it was nothing but like, "Hey, Angel, you have this audition for Unsolved Mysteries. You play a gang member, you shoot someone, right?" And for me, the final straw, and everyone gets typecast, but the final straw for me to say, you know what, I don't want to go out for these roles no more, was when I did Unsolved Mysteries, where I killed somebody on the show, and someone on the street recognized my face from Unsolved Mysteries, but thought that I was the actual killer. She couldn't like put it together that I was just an actor playing, right? So I said, "You know what? From this moment," I said, I'm no more gang member like type of roles where I shoot,
Yeah,
I kill, none of that. I'm not doing that." Which is what led me towards the dance company a little bit, but
yeah,
that's when I had to put a hard no on that. And I know, and as an actor, you don't say that because you take on any challenges and roles that you can, but to me, that was like a hard no. Like when that lady saw me on the street and was like, "Oh, he's the guy who killed." I'm like, "No, I'm an actor playing
no, no,
somebody."
no, yeah, yeah. Here's my IMDb.
Yeah. So
Um,
that, I mean, you try to embrace it all and take any kind of opportunities. But yeah, as an artist, there are going to be things where you have to say no to. Integrity comes into play.
yeah, I guess whatever your if you feel it passes a line morally, or it's just not for you, then that's totally makes sense. Um, have you faced moments of self doubt about your artistic abilities, and how did you overcome them? So, we all kind of suffer from that. Was it imposter syndrome sometimes? I
Oh, you
think.
hit it
Like
right
I
on
know
the
I've
nail.
I've fallen into that.
You hit it right on the nail
Yeah.
because I think it was probably the last 3 years or 3 years ago, I was really going through it. And I didn't even know it was imposter syndrome. I would just wake up and doubt my abilities. I'm like, wait a second, I toured a dance company. We got reviewed by the New York Times. Now I can't even create, I can't even choreograph, I can't produce a piece of music. What's going on? And I felt stagnant, and it was this thing where it felt like I was misleading people. Like even if somebody would hire me to do something for them, I doubted my ability to get it done for them when I did it hundreds of times before, and I couldn't put it. So instead of going to therapy and seeking medication for it, I just came to the realization, and this was these books. The subtle art of not giving a fuck. That was another book I read,
Another fantastic book. Yep.
right? And I just go through these books and I pick up little bits and pieces from these books where it's like, oh, wait a second, okay, regardless of what happens to you, you're still responsible and navigating through that, and just absorbing and coming out of it slowly, and I'm still coming out of it. But yeah, I went through that whole imposter syndrome for a minute. It was like 2 years of going through that, and it was frustrating because I couldn't finish work. I couldn't even, like produce right. I couldn't choreograph or anything like that, but I feel like I'm coming around and coming out of that for
Yeah.
sure.
I It's interesting because I had a thought. We all have these experiences in life, and things that happen, and from traumas to good experiences, but sometimes I think you find why something is the reason, but then
Mhm.
it can very easily go from being the reason to being the excuse.
Right.
So how do you then find that space where you're like, yeah, okay, this is the reason why I have these anxious thoughts about X, Y, and Z. This is why I feel, this is the reason why I'm having this imposter syndrome, or maybe I'm not appreciative of those moments. Like when you get the standing ovation, let's say, really
Right.
taking that in, being like, hey, that was earned. Like these people don't need
Mhm.
to do that. So that means the work, that's something I can keep for myself now as like a little memento of a positive thing. Whereas you can get to a point where I think it becomes the excuse, and you're just like, and it's a hard balance because you don't want to make it seem like a victim blaming thing. But I think there is a point where it's like when you become aware of whatever it is and choice
Hmm.
is now involved, because prior to choice, I don't think you could really do too much. But with awareness of it comes the choice, and then that's like the interesting space. Have you experienced a moment of that, like a moment of clarity where you're like, oh shoot, it was the reason, but now it's not an excuse, kind of a thing?
Right. So I think that you had mentioned it right there, that self awareness, where it was just back to that whole thinking of like, okay, I've been through those positive experiences. Now I'm going through this low. Is like, how can I zoom out and look at the bigger picture? And I think for me, social media, to some degree, can aid in that, digging yourself a hole a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh look, everybody's perfect. Everyone has standing ovations. Everyone's this beautiful choreographer. Everyone's this
Mm-hmm.
amazing producer, right? And you just, I don't know why, you just start feeling like, oh, I need to either catch up or not compete, but up the algorithm or whatever. I social media. I need to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
a
it becomes
podcast
like an
now. I need to.
inorganic strategy of some kind.
Mm,
Like,
right.
I remember having certain conversations where I was trying to express these things that were going on back in 2021. Like I said, those challenging moments, and I was told by someone like, "Hey, you got to be careful because these casting directors see these things and they think blah blah blah." And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm only supposed to show my victories. My life is now supposed to be so heavily curated, which again, it depends. If you want to put yourself out as a product, that makes total sense because not everyone's gonna like write these long philosophical posts or whatever, or explain or write a blog about it.
Right.
But I think it's odd because, and this brings up another conversation, but you know the tortured artist versus like the fully curated, like everything's a model picture. It's a very challenging thing to navigate, man. So I don't know, I fell off on a little bit of a
Yeah.
tangent, but what you were saying
No. No.
kind
No.
of
No.
brought me to that, where it's like, man, it's hard. Do you want to really be a three-dimensional person, or are you like, hey, they want me to play these roles, I'm gonna play the shit out of these roles all the way to the bank, so it's a
Right.
challenge, yeah.
And what I to add to that too, it's like even prior to social media, like if you're in the arts, you're create it's not like for the world to see as far as social media is concerned, you know what I mean? You would have to go to a venue, right? You would have to go to rehearsals, and whether it's a black box theater and do a reading amongst actors, right? Or you go to a rehearsal, dance rehearsals, and then you're creating in the moment. But now with the whole social media thing, just whether it's TikTok, Instagram, it's a blessing and a curse because you have that opportunity to have your own channel, to publish your own songs, right? You have that freedom. But with that freedom comes the whole, oh, then I need to, not to repeat myself, but I need to produce. I need
Yeah,
to create, right? As opposed to just saying, well, like
there's a
one, one,
responsibility there's a
mm-hmm,
responsibility to that quote unquote, that tool, that weapon, whatever it may be. You can't just like swing a sword willy-nilly
right.
and hurt yourself. So I get it, man. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a blessing and a curse. um what role does continuous learning and skill development play in your artistic journey?
That's huge. That's huge. I mentioned earlier how you're always a student of it
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I've once you've become a master of, then you've stopped learning, right? And we've heard these quotes of before about that. But for me, I'm always a student. There's always an opportunity to take an acting class, take a voiceover class, learn how to compose a beat. Like you're gonna find yourself in situations, whether you're an actor, dancer, poet, where now you have to design. You have to go into Photoshop. You may have to go into Final Cut Pro or Logic, right? You may have to learn how to edit a piece of audio. So you're always learning something new, whether it's technical, artistic, or what have you. But you're always a student of it as far as the art and creativity.
Yeah. um so how do you approach, it's like a buzzword these days, but self-care? Is it mental, physical, spiritual, all three, some variation?
For me, it's the physical. If I can be on my feet moving, I can work on that. That's an opportunity for me to work on that inner self. If I'm staying in my apartment or in my head, right, dormant, and I'm not doing anything, that's a bad place to be. Complacency for me, I maybe some people will disagree, but complacency, I'm not perfect, but I don't want to sit dormant mentally or physically. I need to get out and move. I need to get out of this studio and just create up here, out there, come back in. So I want to do that more on the like working out side of things, and the meditational aspect of it. That's something that I
Yeah.
want to do, and also travel. Like I love New York City. I'm always preaching loving New York City, but I love it more when I'm out of the city, when I'm
Yeah.
getting the opportunity to travel different countries, and if I'm able to do that, especially when you travel abroad, that
Oh
changes the
yeah.
game.
Oh yeah. It's like you go away from the drawing board. I mean, the number of times, the few times I would say that I've traveled, when I come back, I've always had this feeling where it's like you acquire like a puzzle piece, and when you come back,
Hmm.
you're able to like put it on the board and be like, ah, like I'm seeing the fuller picture now. So I think those experience. You're right; those experiences are important.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Next up, what strategies do you use to market and promote your work to a wider audience?
It took me 10 years to say that I'm going to launch a YouTube channel in the music space,
Okay.
so for me it's like, and just to do more of the documentary style behind the scenes, how I made this, how I'm pitching it to that project. And it took, I don't know why it took me 10 years to finally say, okay, I'm going to jump on this YouTube thing, and not necessarily to monetize it, but just to document the experience more.
Yep.
So for me, the whole social media aspect of it, I'm on Instagram a little bit more now, so I'm pushing that a little bit more. But yeah, the social media, as far as like getting the word out, letting the world know what you do, it's important for sure.
It's funny how it sometimes it takes time for whatever reason for these things to kind of like cook up in the crock pot and marinate a little bit, because the same thing with this podcast, I wanted to do it for so long, and then I thought to myself, well, who the heck am I to have these types of conversations with people? And what I notice is that little seed of whatever it is, man, stupidity,
Hmm.
demon, like you call it, whatever it is, but those have come up for me over time, and I noticed that when
Same.
that comes up, it's actually like the direction I probably should be leaning in, because
Mm.
I come from a family that has no artistic background. Not that they didn't have an appreciation for it, but just everyone was blue collar, hardworking. The arts wasn't a concept for them. So for
Hmm.
me, it makes me think, well, how do I then go in that direction that I'm thinking maybe I should be, I'm a little worried about, or who am I? Who am I not to? Kind of, you know?
Right.
I want to, my goal really is to maybe save people like 10 years of pounding the pavement, because I've been at it
That's
since
awesome.
forever,
Yep.
so, or what
Hmm.
feels like forever. But I want someone who listens to these podcasts to say, oh, hey, I'm taking a little journal or notes or whatever. And I'm like, oh, this is a good suggestion. This is a good suggestion. Because I think when I was younger, around the same age, you and I, um,
Hmm.
there's, there wasn't really that type of stuff. Like you could get maybe drama bookstore stuff or tapes or whatever, and you'd have to
Hmm.
really invest. But now, like, you get these kind of free things, and I feel like if I was a 17, 18, 19-year old Afrim and had access to this type of
Oh man.
conversation with you, I'd be taking notes like, oh man, this is exactly what I got to do. This is what I got to work on, versus the doubt and all that stuff. So
Yeah, that'll
anyway,
creep in. That doubt
side
is
tangent.
is just no, no, no. That doubt is crazy because I think it's encompassed all of us. Where we're like, why am I doing this? And then and for me again, zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, drawing back to those moments of like, man, I did take that intensive with the labyrinth. I remember those monologues and I as far as storytelling and thinking back of moments, a lot of people shun their past. No, that's past, that's history. I look at things from the past that I'm proud of and that I've accomplished or that I've been able to take part of, and I sometimes live in those moments and use them to help inspire stuff that comes later. Like that Labyrinth, that was a game changer for me. Meeting you and just, having, we had to produce our own play,
Do you
prepare for
remember
the
the name
mono.
of that play?
What was it? Waiting for Hoffman.
Yeah, yeah. It was waiting for Hoffman, man, and it was basically like the joke that
And
he
yeah,
was, rest in peace, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
yes,
This larger than life like actor icon was a member
yep,
of the Labyrinth Theater Company, and we would sometimes, like kind of like looking around, or like, are we able to see these actors who are performing at a high level on television and film, but also doing theater and really digging in. And we were like watching rehearsals. I think they doing Jack Goes Boating or something like that. Maybe that's when
yeah.
I was doing a different.
And he
I'm mixing
walked
up the
in.
ideas, but we were just always kind of like on the lookout. Could we be in the
Mhm.
vicinity of greatness? So maybe it'll like rub off on us,
And
you
I
know?
and I felt that when I went to the Labyrinth. I felt, because I'm a fan of Philip Seymour Hoffman, where John Ortiz, these
Yes.
are
Yep.
founding members of the Labyrinth Theater Group, and their discipline.
Charles Goforth.
And yeah, oh man, that's like, to me, one of the goats as far as acting coaches, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because his ability to just get to the truth. He would always talk about that drilling for the truth. And though that was in acting, I sort of try to apply that to other aspects in life. It's like, you got to dig for the truth. And every time you thought that that was the truth, he says, no, you got to keep digging even more. Right. And I remember that.
He cracked the cement on me so many times where I thought
Yeah.
like I had the right idea, I had the thing, and
Hmm.
then like I'm like questioning my whole understanding of it, and it was great because you need that sometimes.
Yeah.
You need to have
Oh,
the whole, you're playing checkers and you realize that like at the highest level everyone's playing chess.
absolutely. There was a
So
moment in that, if I could share it, for that Labyrinth, where I think I had a acting partner. And in the scene, I was listening to music. So I had a CD player and I'm listening to music, right? He goes, well, what song are you listening to? Open the CD, and there was no CD in there, right? So he goes, no, like, put a CD in, tell me what song you know what I mean? And I'm like, wow. I was just that was just a moment that to me didn't mean anything, because it was about the scene, but I wasn't being truthful, right? No, let me see what song you're listening to. I'm like,
you weren't
damn,
really
this guy's
doing the
so.
thing.
Yeah. And I remember this one actor, she couldn't tolerate it. Like, I think she was crying or what have you, because it just became too much for her. Like, as far as digging for the truth. So it was a real, I think, important moment to,
Yeah.
surround myself with that.
Yeah, that was one of those key time frames for
Hmm.
sure. So you mentioned Atomic Habits a little earlier, but what resources, like books, workshops, online communities, have been particularly valuable to your growth as an artist?
Aside from the books, I tune into some podcasts. I listen to the Gary V's of the world, and
Okay.
also I like to watch a lot of interviews and documentaries, especially interviews. And there's one story that struck me. Sylvester Stallone story, and yeah, he's a
Yeah.
celebrity, he's an anomaly, but this guy couldn't get casted to save his life. You know, and he had this one little project that he held on to, called Rocky, that nobody believed in, and then he marketed it, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll buy it for 300,000, but we're not gonna cast you in it." And he was like, he stuck to his guns. He says, "No." So he got the opportunity to star in that movie that he wrote for, like, scale money at the time, or below scale money. But the point is that he believed in his project so much. Like, stories like that, I gravitate towards. And
Yeah.
though there are anomalies as far as Vin Diesel, nobody would cast him,
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
wrote his own little short film, which didn't see do anything. But Steven Spielberg saw it and casted him in Saving Private Ryan, which led to Fast and Furious and all this other stuff. Again, these are celebrities, but for us who are not celebrities, we're human beings. We're vulnerable.
But they
We
weren't
have an
like
opportunity.
they didn't start automatically in that space. They
Exactly.
created
Exactly.
something and then somehow got catapulted. But that came out of the and with both of those actors in particular, they've also dealt with that self doubt. Getting. I mean, Sylvester Stallone had to like sell his dog to like
Yeah, and he bought his
which then he
dog
got
back
the
or something
dog
like that.
back after he got cast.
Yeah.
Like just hope a bunch of crazy stuff, man.
But society tends to say, well, those are anomalies, Angel. Well, yeah, but they were human beings. They failed. Tyler Perry, he lived in his car. Now he has his own movie studio where people pay him to shoot films inside. It's just like
It's
these are
funny,
human
man.
beings.
People say it's an anomaly, but the more and more you look, you see those stories. So it's like, all right,
Hmm.
well, maybe it's not so much of an anomaly. It might not be the typical, but it's it's one of the possibilities. So,
Yeah,
um,
looking at interviews for me was also helps in that.
so what motivates you to keep going, to keep walking the path that you're on?
Just I my curiosity. There's always something to be a story that needs to be told, a piece of music that needs to get done. That's what I love about the arts. It's like infinite. Music, acting, communication, emotions. That's forever. That I don't feel like that's gonna go anytime soon. So just that natural curiosity to tell a story or keep telling your story and just be heard.
How do you how do you deal with failure, mistakes, regrets?
I try not to sit in that space of regret. For me, knowing that I'm not getting any younger, but understanding that you're gonna fail. Coming to the realization that, yeah, you know what? I may produce something, it will never see the light of day. I'll probably have to do it 30 times before I get that one opportunity. It may be my 90th attempt, but just understanding that I don't have to sit in failure. It's gonna happen, right? It's gonna happen, and I'm gonna deal with adversity, rejection, and all that. But something that's old to you or that you doubt, it's new to somebody who's never seen it. I remember choreographing a piece that's like over 15 years ago. And then 8 years later, I get an email. Hey, Angel, remember that show you did in the Netherlands with that popping choreography? Well, I'm a dancer now and I was practicing and it just, you never know how that art that you or that piece that you did years ago can affect somebody years later in some other country. It's crazy.
Oh, so how do you celebrate victories, accomplishments, good ideas?
Probably like with either with family or just, I kind of keep it low key. I try not to, only with the people that I value and trust, friends or family and stuff like that. But honestly, I'll just do a little dance routine and I'll shoot it and
Dude,
I'll
I
post it up,
swear to God, I
you
was gonna
know?
say that. I was waiting for you to say it because there's sometimes where you'll post a video of you just like,
Mhm.
doing some moves or dancing, and I feel like it's
Yeah.
celebratory. Like I don't know if maybe that's just because it's infused in the movement, but it always
Yeah.
feels like it's something's being celebrated. Like I
I
really,
always go back to dancing, because that's just, I love to dance in general. But for me, like I put, for example, I turn a negative into a positive, but like I'm single in New York, right? So I put, okay, I'm dancing with my vacuum cleaner in the kitchen, but I'm salsa dancing, right? But I'm making light that I'm single in New York. Like he's single, he's dancing with a vacuum
yeah,
cleaner
yeah.
in his kitchen. Like, come on. But it's, you got to find the humor in things for sure.
Um, do you have any daily habits or rituals? And if so, what are they?
I don't, but I want to adopt that more. Like first thing, wake up, maybe do some meditation. I definitely want to apply some of those things for sure. I work out. I tend to jump on the tread, just basic cardio, but nothing too crazy. But I definitely want to apply some more of that, like the meditational aspects that you were talking about.
Okay. What advice do you have for someone who's just starting on their journey as an artist, creator, dancer?
I think whatever lane you're trying to get into, right? Whether it's acting, whether it's dance, whether it's directing, try to find the sources. In New York City, when I was coming up as a dancer, you know, my style of dance was hip hop. So I had to do my research. Okay, who is one of the best hip hop dancers in New York? I need to study the history behind it, the foundation. Like it's not just a dance move on TikTok, right? Who is Mr. Wiggles? Like, who is that? Well, he born in the Bronx. He's one of the pioneers of popping and hip hop dance culture in New York.
Hmm.
So I needed to do my due diligence as not just as a but just as a student and be like, okay, well, if I'm trying to get into acting, What's the best acting school out there? Who's the go-to? Or dance, what studio, or who's, like I'm always trying to find out information and then get into that territory and learn as much as I could before picking up that camera. So, right, if I want to direct, or before doing that piece of art or dancing or producing that song.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer is one of my favorite composers,
Oh
right? I
yeah.
don't have access to him, but I have access to his films, right? And just his interviews. And I saw him live at Radio City Music Hall, and I'm like, wow, just the way he spaces sound out in not just film, but just in a space. And to me, I'm like, I need to surround myself with more of that vibe.
Nice.
Just become a student of it.
And there's so many places to access it. I mean, obviously YouTube, there's Masterclass, like people could sign up for that. BBC
Hmm.
Maestro, that's another version of like Masterclass that has all that type of stuff. So that's really
So
cool.
imagine pre-social media, like you had to actually get out into the street. You actually had to
Yeah.
go
Yep.
to the library, the encyclopedia, these Britannica books, right? You'd have to find this information.
Yep.
Now you could just online, and that's the beauty of it.
How do you envision your artistic journey evolving in the future?
I see myself more in the probably heading more into as far as sonically, audio, and soundtracks and scoring. But I just see myself just further diving into that more as far as obviously continually being a student of it, but just
Yeah.
getting more into the soundtrack and audio composition
Is
space.
there a
I don't know if that answers your question.
Stanislavski-esque like super objective? You know? Do you got something that you look to?
Or like the what if I were this character in this set of circumstances
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of a
yeah.
thing?
If you were Angel Feliciano in
Yeah.
this, in this world, like what would be the super objective, artistic super objective, I guess?
Like our goal of mine to be
Yeah,
in like
yeah,
in 5 years.
or any point in your life. Like, is there something like this is gonna sound totally, but like winning an Oscar or like something, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like saying that out loud, it almost feels like ridiculous. But is there something? Do you have like some astronomical goal that you look towards, or is it just the process and being a student?
At first it was the process, but then I think in the last 3 years I'm like, you know what? It's time to not to switch the mentality of it all, but I do want to be like spearheading the soundtrack of a feature film on Netflix or on Amazon, or I want to be that music composer providing the sonics for that film or that brand or that uh, piece. That's where I see myself. As far as winning awards, it would be cool to have an Oscar, man. That would be awesome, right? To say that I have an Oscar for producing a soundtrack for this. Um, it's possible. It's possible. You never know. It's possible. But in the past, I was like, oh, I want to win a Grammy. I want to win an Oscar for best supporting, like that. Then I've come to the realization that, it's not that it's unrealistic, but sometimes you just have to focus on that one thing and then be a student of it and then say, you know what? All right, I can see myself getting an Oscar for this. Why not?
Nice. Coffee,
Sorry, that was a
tea.
long-winded answer.
No, brother, I love it, man. That's this. The whole thing is. I'm down for long-winded conversations, man. I try to keep this to like an hour or so, just for
Yeah,
people's sanity. But up if it's up to me, I'm the type of person like, yo, let's break night, have that conversation. Like,
I could
what's
talk
the
for
goals?
hours.
I'm that's my whole thing. So, coffee, tea, or something else.
I wish I was a tea guy where I just fix myself some tea in the morning and at night, but I'm a coffee freak. I'd only have like 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day. I don't drink like 5 cups, but I love coffee and wine, obviously later. But I'm a coffee fanatic.
Okay. Um, so I want to try something new. I haven't done this yet,
Hmm.
but I have this idea that life is kind of like it's like a cosmic roll of the dice. You don't know what culture you're going to be born into. You don't know like any of that stuff. You just kind of like are, and then you flow through life. So I have some of these like artistic philosophical questions. I have about 20 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I brought
Damn.
some dice.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm
You're
gonna
gonna
roll
roll
the
them?
dice, and then the number that comes up, I'm gonna ask you that question, and you can choose to answer or not, or pass, or be like next question, and we'll go from there. But
I
there's
hope
some
I
there's
can
some
answer.
fun ones here. So if you're down, I'm down.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, all right, here we go.
Luck be a lady.
Ah, all right. So that's 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I'm not making it up. Let me show you. All right, if I counted correctly.
14?
Okay. Let's see. What is number 14? How does the medium or material used in art affect its meaning and interpretation? Does the choice of medium influence how an artwork is perceived?
Wow. You may have to ask that question again.
Yeah.
I want to answer it.
No, no, it's fine. How does the medium or material used in art affect its meaning and interpretation? Does the choice of medium influence how an artwork is perceived?
I don't think so. I think if you're being truthful, regardless of what's presented to you, you're gonna make the best out of it and create the best art that you can. Don't necessarily know if that'll answer your question, but I think being truthful with anything that you're given, if you're coming from a truthful place, it people will, they'll interpret it, receive it as they will.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's
I don't
good.
think I don't think that fully answered that, but
No, I think it does.
but
I
no,
think
keep
you're
asking
you're
away.
saying that the truth is the most important thing. The medium is actually secondary to the truth, which I would
Hmm.
I would say I would have to agree with that. Um, yeah, that's a good take. Anything you want to tell anyone who's listening or watching right now, what you got going on, where they can contact you, all that good stuff. If they want to reach out to collaborate, if they need someone to make the next blockbuster soundtrack for
Yeah, yeah.
their flick.
No, absolutely. A Feliciano NYC. I'm more on Instagram, so probably there I'll be putting stuff up, and we'll probably send people up to my YouTube like when I launch it, hopefully in the next month or so. But probably Instagram is the best way, direct message. But I'm
Okay.
currently working on the music space right now. So right now we're building a catalog and just submitting it to music supervisors, and hopefully with the Netflix and the streaming of Amazon Prime and all that, you'll be able to hear some of my soundtracks and music on those TV
Yeah,
shows.
send
One of
send
them.
me all that, and I'll put it in the
Hmm.
show notes. And if anyone wants to contact Angel, do so and make it happen. Thank you, brother. I
Let's
really
do it.
appreciate it. Also,
Thank
happy
you.
birthday. Many, many
Thank you so much.
more
Thank
on
you.
your artistic journey. I'm very happy to know you and to kind of get to experience your perspective on things. It helps me when I see it on a daily basis. So genuinely, thank you.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thank you.